sorry ass DJ.
On everyone. Today, the Group 2 will be discussing the Lesson 2, which is the Filipino Identity and Moral Standards, the Chapter 5, Filipino Characteristics and Filipino Value Systems. So, ano nga ba yung nilalaman ng Filipino Identity and Moral Standards? So, nilalaman nito ay ang Filipino Value System, what are values, what are Filipino values, significance of studying Filipino values, understanding Filipino values, and culture. So, ang Filipino characteristics, other strengths of Filipino's characteristics, and the weaknesses of Filipino characters. Nandito din yung Filipinos citizenship values for the family and the future generations, justice, promotion of the common good, the equality, and concern for the environment. But before we delve into our discussion, let us define what is values. Ano nga ba yung values? Kapag naririnig or nakikita nyo yung word na values, ano yung mga particular na pumapasok sa isip ninyo kapag nakita nyo o narinig nyo yung word na values? So sa atin, kapag narinig natin yung word na values, ito yung behavior ng isang tao. Tama ba? Sa iba, sa atin, yun yung values. Filipino values in particular, it is worth analyzing the word itself. The word value has its roots in the Latin word valere, which means to be strong and vigorous. So, ayan daw. Yung value daw ay nagsimula sa salitang Latin na valere, nang ibig sabihin ay lakas at sigla. This proceeds from the premises that a human person has to have strength or valor in every endeavor. It is the basis on which his strength in facing the challenges of life should be directed. Ito yung kakayahan daw ng isang tao na harapin ang kanyang problema, solusyonan ang kanyang problema. So ayon kay Dr. Thomas Q. Andres in 1986, he defined values as things, persons, ideas, or goals which are important to live anything which is enable life to be understood, evaluated, and directed. So sabi ni Dr. Thomas Q. Andres, dinefine niya yung values as bagay, tao, ideya, o goal ng isang tao na importante para sa pang-araw-araw na buhay ng isang tao. On the other hand, Edgar Sheffield Brightman defined value as whatever is liked, prized, esteemed, desire of approve, or enjoyed by anyone at any time. It is the actual experience of enjoying a desired object or activity, hence value in the existing realization of desire. So, ang pagpapakahulugan naman ni Edgar Sheffield Brightman sa values ay kung ano daw yung nagustuhan, yung pinapahalagahan at tinanais. Ito daw yung tinatangkilik ng sinuman. Ito ang tunay na karanasan ng pagtamasa ng kanyang ninanais. So makatuwid, ang value ay isang umiiral na pagsasakatuparan ng mabuting gawain at hangarin. So sa madaling salita, ang values o halaga ay nagsasaad ng antas ng kahalagahan ng ilang bagay o aksyon na may hangarin na matukoy kung anong mga aksyon ang pinakamahusay na gawain o kung anong paraan ang pinakamabuting gawain upang ilarawan ang kahalagahan nito. The values of a society would be the standards of principle for which an act is judged to be what is right or wrong, correct or incorrect. As such, it is the goal set for every member of the community to attain what is desirable. In the other word, values in a society gives meaning and direction to every individual's life and influences human behavior. So, tulad nga ng sabi kanina, ang lipunan ay ang mga pamantayan o alituntunin kung saan ang isang kilos ay hinuhusgahan sa kung ano ang tama o mali nito. Ito ay ang layunin na itinakda ng bawat miyembro ng pamayanan upang makamit kung ano ang kanais-nais o kung ano ang kanilang ninanais. Sa madaling salita, ang mga halaga o ang halaga ng lipunan ay nagbibigay ng kahulugan at direksyon sa bawat buhay ng individual at naiimpluwensyahan nito ang behavior ng isang tao, ang pag-uugali o ugali ng isang tao sa ating lipunan. What are values? The Filipino value system or Filipino values refers to the set of values that a majority of the Filipino have historically held important in their lives. The Philippine value system includes their own unique assemblage of consistent ideologies, moral codes, ethical practices, etiquette, and cultural and personal values that are promoted by their society. As with any society, too, the values that an individual hold sacred can differ on the basis of religion, upbringing, and other factors. So, tayo mga Pilipino, meron tayong common Filipino values. Ano nga ba yung mga common Filipino values na meron tayo? So, tayo mga Pilipino ay family-oriented, flexible, adaptive, and creative. Religious, tayo mga Pilipino ay relihiyosong mga tao. Ability to survive, ang mga Pilipino ay may kakayahan na magawa ng solusyon ang kanilang mga suliranin. May kakayahan sila na makasurvive at masolusyonan yung kanilang pang-araw-araw na pangangailangan. Hardworking and industrious. Ang mga Pilipino ay masisipag at matsatsaga. Hospitable. Yan. Ang mga Pilipino daw ay hospitable. Ano pa? Bayanihan. Ang mga Pilipino ay matulungin. Yes. Paggalang, mga Pilipino ay may respeto, may pakikisama, utang na loob, at yun nga, family-oriented, pagpapahalaga sa family, and may hiya. Paano nasabi ng mga Pilipino ay hospitable? This is the most common terminology that describes how Filipino welcome foreigners or tourists who visit the country. For Filipinos, it is a pleasure and the country's honors to accept foreigners as the visitors and build genuine relationship and friendship with them. So yun daw, yung dahilan kung bakit nasabi na ang mga Pilipino ay hospitable. So, paano nasabi na ang Pilipino ay hospitable? By greetings, yes. This is the first sign of a Filipino hospitality. If you could notice, kapag pumupunta tayo sa mga malls or stores, di ba, kapag yung mga tao doon, kapag pumasok ka, sabihin sa'yo, good morning ma'am, good morning sir. Welcome to kung ano mang store yung pinasukan mo. So, mga Pilipino ay hospitable dahil sa greetings. And greetings ang isa sa sign na masasabi na ang Pilipino ay hospitable. Next is significance of studying Filipino values. Several studies have been made of Filipino values. They have always been interested in examining Filipino values because it is influenced a Filipino behavior in particular and shaping the Philippine society in general. How Filipinos feel and motivated to do the specific task is directed and evaluated by his set of values. In order to understand the Filipino culture and the development of the Filipino individual, one has to understand the underlying values on which every Filipino acts. A study on the Filipino values would provide us a deeper understanding of the Filipino culture. So, para daw mas maintindihan o mas maunawaan ang kulturang Pilipino at ang pag-unlad ng individual na Pilipino, kailangang maunawaan ng isang tao ang mga pinagbabatayan na halaga kung saan kumikilos ang bawat Pilipino. Sa gayon, ang isang pag-aaral ng mga values ng Pilipino o halagang ng Pilipino ay magbibigay sa atin ng mas malalim na pag-unawa sa kulturang Pilipino. The shaping of the Philippine society into a successful and progressive nation would depend on understanding and appreciating the positive side of Filipino values and how they are applied to attain such goal. It is imperative that a full understanding and appreciation of the positive side of our very own principles being made and used for our personal and national success. So the purpose of this chapter is to help us understand our Filipino values to enable us to put the positive side of Filipino values in use and to disregard the negative ones. In the end, through the development and the use of positive Filipino values, we may bring out the best in the Filipino society in general and the individual particular.
So good afternoon guys, I'm Thomas Jinkanawa and we're going to discuss about the chapter 4, Filipino Characteristics, Filipino Value System. And to spice things up, we're going to add a statement of Dr. Thomas Q. D. Andres of 1986 that define values as things, persons, ideas, or goals which are important to life. Anything which enables life to be understood, evaluated, and directed. On the other hand, Edgar Sheffield Brightman defines value as whatever is liked, prized, esteemed, desired, approved, or enjoyed by anyone at any time. So from all of those statements, the Filipino values significantly would be the standards or principles set forth by the Filipino society as basis for what is right or wrong, the principles on which every member of the Filipino society should persevere to attain in order to reach the ultimate realization of his life regarding his person and in relation to his family and society in general. So it just means all of those standards and principles of our ancestors help them to face all of those struggles with ease and to face them with brave and strong personality. So what are the significance of studying Filipino values? So what are the significance of studying Filipino values? Studying Filipino values influences one's behavior in particular. Thus, this will help us to deeply understand the Filipino culture and its development. By doing it, it will shape the Philippine society into a successful and progressive nation if we tend to understand and appreciate the positive side of Filipino values and how they are applied to attain such goal. This will help us to understand our Filipino values to enable us to put the positive side of Filipino values in use and disregard the negative ones. In the end, through the development and use of positive Filipino values, we may bring out the best in the Filipino society in general and in individual in particular. So now we're going to understand our Filipino values and cultures. We all know that we are a mixture of races and cultures. We were influenced by our ancestors, Malays and Indos, the colonization of Spaniards and Americans, and also the Chinese and Indians who help us in market trade. So from all of those values and cultures from different countries, we adopt everything and that made us original from the rest of them. As we may observe, the most prominent Filipino values are the result of the blend of the Christian values of Europe, the pragmatic and democratic values of Americans, and the spiritual values of Asians. We all know that Filipinos are a family-oriented people, that the tradition of close family ties has long been practiced and considered as the foundation of the Philippine society. So much is the effect of this tradition that the members of the Constitutional Commission of the 1987 Philippine Constitution deemed the proper to include it as a state policy and a chapter of the fundamental law of the land. Thus, Article 15, Section 1 of the said Constitution provides that the state recognizes the Filipino family as the foundation of the nation. So first in the line is the personalism. It's a Filipino trait wherein they give importance to interpersonal relations or face-to-face encounters. Filipinos usually extends their work or services through personal touch or handles problem solving through good personal relations. So on the other side, right from the childhood, everyone is made to believe that he belongs to the family. The Filipino individual is always encouraged to get advice from his parents and submit to his parents' direction, counsel, and advice. He is admonished to be good because any disgrace that he commits is a disgrace to the family. In the times of misfortune, he is assured of his family support, sympathy, and love. From my own experience, my family is always taking my back, that I can assure that I can lean on them, and that's the good thing because right from the start they made me feel that I belong to the family, and they just made me realize that anything that I will do is not a disgrace for me but our surname. However, modern era is catching up with the Filipino society. Changes must occur if the Filipino society is to survive in a changing world. The Filipino society will have to keep up with the changes brought about by the modernization. The society must prepare itself for a serious re-evaluation for its values. In most instances, it will have to break away from its past and adjust itself towards the future. This only means that our culture is being modified as time passes by because of the modernization. However, this is the reason why we are studying our culture to preserve it for the future generations. So now we're going to tackle about the Filipino characteristics. The characteristic that makes Filipino vary from different society is his uniquely blended culture and the values from different influences. Filipino values, for reason of several influences that shape its identity, are bipolar like a coin that has two sides. So from all of those influences from the other countries and other cultures, we have modified our own culture that we can call our own. And because all of that influences that shape our identity, we may either be positive or negative in polarity. Let us take this for example, the value of utang na loob or debt of gratitude. The value of utang na loob, the altruistic drawing of interior goodness of a person by returning a debt of gratitude, is by itself positive. Like for example, we have a open gratitude. We have an open heart of giving that depth of gratitude towards a person. That will be a positive side of that gratitude. So as a personal experience as personalism, I have a friend who is an online seller and we're out of delivery that time. But the buyer is just out of anger towards us because we can't locate its exact place. But the moment we saw each other, we're just laughing all around. I don't know why, but maybe that's just because of our traits that we're just good at chatting and just throwing words when we are in online or we can't see each other, but in personal we're just going to treat each others in a good way because of our trait, which is our hospitality. So the second one is the familialism. Focuses on the welfare and interests of the family over those of the community. The family is the basis of group action and almost all community activity centers on the family. In decision making, it is the family that decides rather than the individual on important matters. It takes into consideration the welfare of the family and not the individual. The family's honor, not the personal image. That is it at stake when a family member makes a mistake. As I've said a while ago, we are a family-oriented person, and as far as I know, every one of us can't make a decision without our family, without reconsidering our family. But the good thing about it is that when we make a mistake or when we're going to face a trial, we're going to have our families back. So the last but not the least is the particularism, relates to the strong family influence on the individual or group behavior. This is shown when an individual strives to promote their own and their family's interests over the community's interests. Popularity among peers is prevalent and observable. Thus, Filipinos make special efforts to entertain friends and relatives. Pakikisama is very important. Conformity The proper codes of conduct yields rewards of cooperation, while nonconformity results to withdrawal of support. This means that we Filipino is always considering the hospitality of every Filipino because we know that we treat people the way we want to be treated. So it is also important to know that there are three main obligations that underline the Filipino value orientation, namely relational or pakikipagkapwa, emotional, damdamin, and moral karangalan. One or all of these may have influence in Filipinos' lives and social relationships.
Good day everyone! I'm Jalian Eliao from BA Com 1G. So for today's video, we're going to tackle about the values in the Filipino society. So what are you waiting for? Let's do this! So let us then try to discuss some of the values in the Filipino society and reevaluate them to develop a more positive value for the Filipino individuals. So first is the utang na loob. There is no specific translation that can approximate the meaning of the Filipino value of utang na loob. That of gratitude is only an excuse of a translation because it does not even approximate the fertile concept of the Filipino loob. Though utang na loob is a situation where an individual is required to return a favor or the service received. However, the return of such service or favor cannot be translated into monetary equivalent and may be reciprocated in a month of service or even a lifetime. So, for example, a congressman proudly gives a town new chapel, a bridge, or a waiting shed, no matter whether the money came from his pocket or from the government. This make the people indebted to him. And when elections come, he recite the litany of his project and people. Oath to repay this through their votes, not to repay this form of debt means that those who were benefited, walang utang na loob. After having been elected, the people would approach this congressman to return of the favor by seeking employment for them. Thus, this would end into a vicious cycle where the person na pinagkautangan ng loob becomes the giver and the giver becomes the person na may utang na loob. So, this is another example of the utang na loob in the community or barangay. Like for example, sa kapitan. So, kapag ang kapitan ay gumawa ng proyekto sa isang barangay upang maipakita ang kanyang ambag sa kanyang barangay na nasasakupan, matik na ang mga tao roon na kanyang nasasakupan ay kapag darating na ang eleksyon, ay kanyang aasahan upang siya ay tulungan. Second value of the Filipino is bahala na. So, bahala na means the Filipino nature, a religious group of people. They firmly believe in the supernatural and in the all kinds of spirit dwelling in individual person, place, or things. They believe in a supreme being who will take care of things for them. The Filipino very religious who has a saint to pray to each day of the week. The term bahala na comes from the words bathala na. It reflects the Filipino dependence on the supernatural being and on faith. This trend to move toward the commonly conceived prescanistration character of the Filipino. So like for example, sa mga katulad kong estudyante, kapag may mga proyekto or exam na gawain, kadalasan nilang nababanggit, bahala na si Lord, bahala ni si Batman. So, ibig sabihin lamang, they asking for Lord and Batman to guide them upang maging maayos yung result ng exam or yung correct na gagawin. Another example is sa family, kapag may gumawa sa kanila ng masama, instead na gumanti sila ng physical, they always saying na lang na bahala ni si Lord sa kanila. So it means they asking for Lord na siya na lamang ang bahala sa mga nanakit sa kanila or gumawa ng mali sa kanila. So the third value of the Filipino are the Manana habit. So what is the Manana habit? Manana habit can be traced back in the Spanish colonization era. The term Manana is a Spanish word that means tomorrow. This is a Filipino trait that enforces procrastination, practice of putting off work to be done in the near future or in the last minute. This habit is exemplified through the mamayana or bukas na. So like for example, sa mga estudyante ulit na katulad ko, sa mga pinapagawa ng mga guro at assignment, na dapat naman sa pag-uwi ay ginagawa na kung wala na magagawin. But, dahil nga sa teknolohiya na meron tayo ngayon, kagaya na lamang ng YouTube, Facebook, at ML or Mobile Legend, halip na gawin na lang agad, minsan sinasabi na lang natin ay mamaya na ko na ito tatapusin kasi matagal pa naman yung pasahan. So, instead na natapos mo na at makalipas ang ilang araw, nasa school ka na, hindi mo pa rin natatapos yung gawain mo, yung assignment mo. So, dahil na sa Manana habit na iyong taglay. So, the fourth value of the Filipino is the Ningas Kugon. So, the term Ningas Kugon translates to burning of Kugon grass. As a Filipino trait, it means that Filipinos tend to have a strong enthusiasm in the beginning of each work or endeavor, but gradually slows down and lose their drive to work and finish the job. It is said that in work, Filipino tend to do their job half-baked or leave it unfinished. So like for example, bilang taong bahay, syempre, dapat kailangan maging malinis ang iyong bahay. So, magwawalis ka ng inyong harapan, and then, ngunit may taglay ka ng Ningas Kugon, mamaya, may isip ko na lang, ay, ayoko nang magwalis. So, maghuhugas na lang ako ng plato. At, naisip ko na naman, iba na naman yung isip mo na, ay, ayoko nito, ayoko nang maghugas ng plato. Tutulog na lang ako or anything na gagawin. Tapos mamaya hindi mo na naman nagagawa. So, dahil nga sa taglay mong Ningas Kugon, hindi mo na natatapos ang iyong mga ginagawa. Ibig sabihin, naiiwanan mo na lang ng ganto-ganyan, basta na lamang yung mga gawain mo. Dahil nga, kasi pabago-bago ng iyong isip. Fifth value of the Filipino is the amor proprio. So, what is the amor proprio? As a reinforcement to the Philippine trait of hiya or shame, Filipinos are asking to the traditional attitude of shaving face. Amor proprio is another Spanish term that means a sense of self-esteem or self-respect that prevents a person from swallowing his pride. It also means egoistiveness or maintaining one's dignity and personal pride. According to the Philippines Australia Business Council, amor proprio implies a vindictive reaction to questioning an individual's action, integrity, or honor. So, like for example, sa mga kabataan like me, na mahilig pumunta ng iba't ibang lugar or kapag may celebration yung kapwa mag-aaral niya. Instead na pumunta siya, ang ginawa niya ay nagtago sa bahay or gumawa ng nagdahilan para hindi siya makapunta kahit invited naman siya. So, hindi ka na makakadalo dahil nga meron kang amor proporyo o hiya na iyong tanggal. The last but not the least is the bayanihan. So, in article entitled Filipino Culture, Bayanihan, the Filipino value that must be retained, it describes bayanihan as is a core sense of the Filipino culture. It is helping out one's neighbor as a community and doing a task together, thus lessening the workload and making the job easier. It is also called the community spirit. Yan. It is the best exhibited when people wish to move location in the rural area. The bahay kubo can be moved using wooden poles which are carried from the old place to the new one. This requires a group of people to lift and carry the house of their shoulders. Able-bodied men usually participated in such feats while women stood and watched casually, chatting and cheering the men on. Afterwards, there will be a small gathering, a small form of celebration as a form of celebration and socialization. So, like for example, like sa amin pong lugar, sa Matambukay, Liang Batangas. So, another example po siya ng bayanihan. So, sa amin, ang bayanihan na sinasabi ko ay kapag may gumagawa ng balsa. Ang balsa po is the floating raft na siyang inilalaot or yung dinadayuhan ng mga tao sa Matambukay. So, kapag may mga bagong gawang ganon, ay nag-uusong-uso or nagtutulungan ang mga tao para buhatin ang balsa para ilagay sa dagat. Diba? So, dun pa lang makikita yung bayanihan. And another example is tao doon sa komunidad namin ay nagtutulong-tulong upang maglinis ng tabing dagat. So, inaalis nila yung mga dumi dito, dumidaan. So, makikita pa lang doon yung bayanihan o yung pagkakaisa ng bawat komunidad. So, doon na din makikita ang pagmamahal sa kapwa, pagtutulungan, at pagmamahal at pag-iingat sa kalikasan. So, ang malaking tulong ito sa bawat Pilipino kung meron ang bawat isa nito ng taglay, di ba? Mas mapapaunlad natin ang ating bayan, barangay o bansa dahil sa ating pagkakaisa. So, that is for today, guys. Thank you for watching and I hope you learned. Yeah. Thank you. God bless.
Other strand of Filipino characters. In other words, strand of Filipino character is like a tradition of Filipino. Like yung mga nakasanayan nilang gawin, yung mga, kapag sinabi mo talagang yon, may isip mo talaga siya na Filipino. Like, pakikipagkapwa-tao, family-oriented, joy and humor, flexibility and adaptivity, hard work and industry, faith and religious, ability to survive. Other weaknesses of the Filipino character: extreme personalities, extreme family-centeredness, lack of discipline, positivity of lack intimated, colonial mentality, at kanya-kanyang side room, lack of self-analysis and self-reflection. Meron siyang 10 na katangian ng tao na nakapaloob sa mga nabanggit ko, like pakikisama, hiya, utang na loob, close, and pakikisama sa ibang tao. Yung mga nabanggit ko naman, under siya ng home environment, social environment, culture and language, and history.
Respect for life. Treat life with respect, and life itself will reveal its beauty to you. It means it's a hard when you don't treat your life with respect and life itself. It never gave you a good response in everything that you did. Life has its way to give you a chance to return a better result. House of Life by Andrew Maria. The crowd said to the mystic, "We found a big and beautiful house called Life." Without giving any thought to whom the house of life might belong, we rushed inside it. Yet to our dismay, the house of life was empty and there was nothing in it. Life is empty, life has no meaning. The mystic went to the house Life to see it is really was empty. He knocked on the door before entering, and someone from within opened it. He stayed inside the house of the quite some time while the crowd waited outside. It was already evening when the mystic went out. "It is the house of life empty, as we told you?" the crowd questioned him. The mystic answered the crowd, "The house of life is not empty. When I was inside, I saw the most beautiful rooms with golden chairs, silver table, and jewel walls. Above all this, I dined and conversed with the master of life himself." "How can that be?" the crowd insisted. "When we were inside the house of life, it was empty, yet now you tell us that it is not." Mystic rebuked the crowd. "You found the house of life empty because you did not knock before you entered it. You rushed into life even without knocking, as if the house belonged to you." The master of life, seeing that you lack respect for life and reverence for it, took away its beauty because you would not know how to use it. "You are proud and vain as if you are the master of your own life. For this reason, the master of life gave you the house of life to look at back, not to live in. If only you had knocked before you enter, then you would have seen the beauty I saw and conversed with the master of life himself." "Tell us, please," the crowd begged the mystic, "what does it mean to knock on the door of life?" The mystic solemnly spoke. "To knock on the door of life is to be humble enough to accept that the house does not belong to you, but to the master. To knock on the door of life is to seek the master of the house and not the treasure in the house. To knock on the door of life is to wait with patience for the master to open it from within and not to force it from the outside. To knock on the door of life is to follow the statutes and commandments of the master of life. To knock on the door of life is to pray the master of the life that you may love him, since he not only owns the house, but your only very sold as well." They left the mystic after they heard this. The crowd returned to the house of life, and they knocked before entering. The master of the house of life opened it from within. Once inside, the crowd saw the beautiful things the mystic had seen. But most of all, they were able to dine and converse with the master of life himself. Life, after all, is not empty. The House of Life by Andrew Maria. This story have a deep meaning. This emphasizes the respect to one's life. You have no right to others' life because you did not own it. You would not envision others' life without respecting them. Being humble and respectful to them is the only way to see what their life could be. Those people who they think control and firstly enter one's life without their consent will be useless and full of emptiness. Surely they wouldn't understand at all. Respect others before you make action.
Concern for the family and future generations, we can get so involved in what we are doing that we forget why we are doing it. We are so involved in living that we forget the purpose of living. We get so involved in pursuing the things money can buy that we forget about the things that money can't buy. Other mistake no time. One night, a father came to a parent-teacher conference in a city high school. During a talk with one of his son's teacher, the father broke down and began to cry. After he regained his composure, the father apologized, saying, "My son no longer lives with me, but I still love him and I want to know how he's doing in school." The father then told the teacher how his wife and 4 children had left him that afternoon. He was a building contractor and sometimes worked 16 hours a day. Naturally, he saw little of his family and then slowly grew farther and farther apart. Then the father said something sad. "I wanted to buy my wife and kids all the things I had dreamed of giving them. But in the process, I got so involved in working that I forgot about what they needed most. A father who was around at nights to give them love and support." The reading's father mistake no time had been mysterious to me while reading it. Reading the short story made me sad and wonder about the harsh reality that is happening to other people. To be a parent was one of the hardest job I believe a person could handle, so we should consider and appreciate our parents' effort and affection towards us since at the end of the day, we are all human who have feeling and affection for each other. It was understandable in the story that his family had left him since he had no time to be a husband and a father to them. But I think that there more of a reason for someone to stay with him through ups and downs and through life and death.
Truth about lies. Lies are said in the place of the truth. Why not to prepare to tell the truth than to settle for a lie? There are no half-truth or white lies. It's either you say the truth or tell a lie. A million lies cannot make up a single truth. You can never transform a lie into truth. It's easier to tell the truth than to tell a lie. With the truth, you merely have to state that fact. With lies, you have to cook up 1,000 alibis. Here's my explanation. A lie is a lie. It cannot be justified by any reason that you have for telling a lie. Sometimes you may have good intention of telling a lie. But since it's a lie, it could have adverse effect later on and could be more damaging. Even though you keep on saying lies, or more people will tell about that lie, it would remain a lie. It cannot be covered by how many people believe in that lie. Lies will always be unraveled no matter how one tries to cover it. One day it will be exposed and people who are affected would know for sure will be greatly hurt. There's no sense on hiding telling the truth, would just merely stating on a fact on what had really happened. And those should be natural way to say things, and saying the truth will always be liberating.
Reality. Each man may differ in worldly stature, but each one bears the same amount of dignity as another, and all share one common destiny. And now, I will share the story about Scouts by Andrew Maria Almonte. One day, a group of Scouts in the cemetery had a conversation. "Hey," said a Scout to another, "who were you when you were alive?" "I was a king," answered the Scout with an air of pride. "Yes, I was once a slave," replied another Scout. "He was a tyrant, a ruthless, merciless king. How dare you speak about me like that? Countered the king's skull. I am your king, remember? Shut up, shouted the slave skull. You are no longer my king, nor I am your slave anymore. We are the same now, rodent skull. What is equality? Equality leads to a condition in which all members of a society have the same rights, liberties, and status, which may include civil rights, freedom of expression, autonomy, and equal access to certain public goods and social services. And now, I will tackle about the message of these stories and the importance of it. That is, equality is ensuring that everyone has the same chance to make the most of their life and their abilities. It also the notion that no one should be denied equal opportunities in life because of how they were born, where they came from, or what they believe, whether or not they have a disability.
A Chinese Legend by Benigno P. Beltran, 2004. Once upon a time, in the Western Kingdom lay a beautiful garden, and there, in the cool of the day, was the master of the garden, one to walk. All of the denizens of the garden, the most beloved was gracious and noble Bamboo. Year after, Bamboo grew yet more noble and gracious, conscious of his master's love and watchful delight, but modest and more gentle withal. And often, when the wind revelled to the garden, Bamboo could cast aside his grave stateliness, to dance and play right merrily, toasting and swaying, leaping and bowing in joyous abandon, leading the great dance of the garden which the most delighted the master's heart. One day, the master himself drew near to contemplate his Bamboo, with eyes of curious expectancy. And Bamboo, in a passion of adoration, bowed his great head to the ground in loving greeting. The master spoke. Bamboo, Bamboo, I won't use thee. Bamboo flung his head to the sky in utter delight. The day of days had come, the day for which he had been made, the day for which he had been growing, hour by hour, this day in which he had been find his completion and his destiny. His voice came low. Master, I am ready. Use me as thou wilt. Bamboo, the master voice was grave. I would fain take thee and cut thee down. A trembling of a great horror shook Bamboo. Cut me down? Me, who, master, has been made the most beautiful tie entire garden. To cut me down? Ah, not that, not that. Use me for the tie, joy. Oh, master, but cut me not down. Beloved Bamboo, the master voice grew still. If I cut thee not down, I cannot use thee. The garden grew still. Wind held his breath. Bamboo slowly bent his proud and glorious head. There came a whisper. Master, if thou cannot use me, if thou cut me not down, then do thy will and cut. Bamboo, beloved Bamboo, I would cut thy leaves and branches from thee also. Master, master, spare me, cut me down and lay my beauty in the dust. But wouldn't thou take from me my leaves and branches also? Bamboo, alas, if I cut them not away, I cannot use thee. The sun hid his face. A listening butterfly glided fearfully away, and Bamboo shivered in trembling expectancy, whispering low, Master, cut away. Bamboo, Bamboo, I would yet cleave thee in a twain and cut thine heart. For if I cut not so, I cannot use thee. Then Bamboo bowed to the ground. Master, master, then cut and cleave. So the master of the garden took Bamboo and cut him down, and a hack off his branches, and stripe off his leaves, and cleave him in twain, and cut
out his heart, and lifting him gently, carried him to where there was a spring of fresh, sparkling water in the midst of his dry field. Then putting one end of broken bamboo in the spring and the other end into water channel in his field, the master laid down gently his beloved bamboo, and the spring sang welcome, and the clear, sparkling water raced joyously on the channel of bamboo's turn, the body into waiting fields. Then the rice was planted, and the days went by, and the shoots grew, and the harvest came. In that day was bamboo, once glorious in his stately beauty, yet more glorious in his brokenness and humility. For in his beauty he was life abundant. In his brokenness he became a channel of abundant life to his master world. The value of the promotion of the common good can be seen clearly through the story of Benigno Beltran entitled A Chinese Legend. In the story, the bamboo was the one who portrayed the value the most, because it gave away its beautiful growth for its master. To use its purpose, the bamboo allowed his master to cut and cleave for the sake of the other part of the garden, to be prosperous in growth and in abundance.
For 3, values in your analysis. 1 is check that the organization of your analysis makes sense. Number 2, look for an area where you might clarify your rating or add. Number 3, cut out any relevant passage. Number 4 is proofread your rating and fix any errors.
Sorry, it's DJ.